Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll be customizing another one of these custom Winx BJD dolls from Keen's Customs on Instagram. I previously customized Bloom if you want to check that out. And now we are working on Stella from season 1. I pre-made a wig cap exactly how I made Bloom's. I also have a tutorial on my Zelda Echoes of Wisdom doll. I started off with spraying her face with Mr. Super Clear, and I'm going straight in with acrylic paint to paint in her eye whites. I went in with a watercolor pencil to sketch in the liner on the bottom of her eyelashes. I'm going for a brown, and later I'll also be doing dark brown. I'm going in with brown and sketching in her eyebrows and her irises. I'm using a lighter brown to build up some color, and I'm using a damp paintbrush. I can blend in the darker brown and the lighter brown. I'm going in with chalk pastel and blushing on some color on her lips and eyeshadows. I added some black for the upper eyes, and I used my damp brush again since I can get smaller areas with my brush a bit easier than with a pencil. I'm using a kneaded eraser to erase any small imperfections. It's a lot easier to erase lighter lines. On the second layer, I'm going in with a cream color and continuing to blend in the browns, since I kind of want her eyes to look brownish gold. Using black acrylic paint with a tiny bit of water on the brush, I can paint in her eyelashes. They are sculpted, so I don't have to sketch out anything. It's just their eyeliner. If I make any small mistakes with the paint, I can go in with an X-Acto knife and very lightly scrape it away. To build up the color and get it a little bit more opaque, I'm going in with a brown and painting in the pupil as well as around the edges of the iris, using a tiny bit of water to blend that out. I mixed a brown with a little bit of black to make a darker brown. I just painted that around the iris to really make it pop. After I'm satisfied with the eyes, I went in with white acrylic paint again to add the eye shines and touch up the scleras. I went in with some more black paint for her irises. I also painted a little bit of light brown for her eyebrows to get that blonde eyebrow look. I went in with some more white details on her eyes, eyebrows, and lip, and then I went in with a little bit of brown over the white so it wasn't super bright. Once that's sprayed and sealed, I went in with UV resin on her eyes and lips. Now that we're done with her face, we're moving on to her hair. I ordered mohair from Etsy, and I'm just using this permanent hair dye in yellow, and I'm applying it very thoroughly to both sides of the hair. For Bloom, I bought pre-colored mohair, but with tariffs, the shipping was double the price and more expensive than the actual hair. So I tried to find something that was located in the US, and I just colored it myself. In the future, I don't think I'll be going with mohair, just since this was slightly more expensive and longer process than Bloom's. I guess it was kind of around the same price, but it was a longer process. Once that's fully coated, I let this sit for the amount of time that the directions say, and then I rinsed everything out with cold water. Once that rinsed clean, I could air dry her hair for about a day. We can put that aside and move on to her outfit. Using air dry clay, I molded clay around the foot to create those wedges exactly how I did for Balloon's shoes. I just wrapped the feet in saran wrap so they were protected. I basically just used a little bit of water and X-Acto knife and form it around the foot, smoothing it out and just getting it as smooth as possible and shoe-like. Once that is completely dry, I can go in with sanding paper and just sand it out super smooth. I can also carve it a bit if needed. I really like air dry clay for accessories since it's super easy to sand, but for small details, it's not that ideal unless it's carved since it's super soft. And sometimes it feels like it kind of reactivates once it's wet, but that also makes it a little bit easier to smooth it out when sanding. Once they are all nice and smooth, I'm just going in with some paint and painting her shoes green. I can put that aside to dry, and I used some orange fabric coated in glue, painted these little flowers, and attached them with a strap so these shoes will be permanent. With the shoes completed, we can move on to her skirt. She's got this gold chain, so I just split these things in half. I don't know what they're called, but they had a loop on them, so I looped them onto like this thicker chain that I had. I don't even know how I attached it around her waist. I kind of just used one that I didn't break and attached them both to one side and used pliers to kind of squeeze it in place. They don't stay in place. Maybe one day I'll use a tiny bit of glue so they're all perfectly evened out and I don't have to fix it. I'm making a simple skirt, and here she is so far next to Bloom. I'm using some green fabric to make her halter top. Is super simple, and then I made a faux tie and just sew that directly onto the front of her shirt. Now that her hair is completely dry, I'm just brushing out both sides to get all the tangles out. I'm wrapping it really thoroughly so I don't waste any hair. Some waste is inevitable, but we want to limit that. I go in with a hair straightener, straighten that a couple times until she's smooth. She still wasn't that smooth, but I continue to straighten it off camera and later. This mohair was really hard to get super straight. That's also why I probably won't use this again for straight hair characters. For Bloom, it worked really well since it was pretty wavy, but it was a lot harder to get straight than I thought. I can cut the top, and then I'm just making some wefts on a old piece of doll plastic from doll boxes. Once those yarn wefts are dried, I can put her wig cap back on, and we are just going to glue the yarn wefts directly to her head. I cut a little slit at the top of her head where her part will be. I didn't cut it all the way through since she has bangs. I didn't do this for Bloom last time, but I did that recently for a wig with nylon, and I really liked how the part turned out. We're just going layer by layer, adding yarn wefts. I also used a tiny bit of water on the hair and then straightened it, and it really seemed to help straighten it out. It's kind of got a little bit frizzy over time, but it was decent at first, so I might still try to straighten her hair again and restyle it when I do the next Winx doll. Once I get up to the part, I can put a yarn weft in the slit and fold it over, and she has got a lovely part. I cut some smaller pieces of mohair for her bangs, and then I went in again with some water and a hair straightener, and I kind of gave it a slight curl. It did not stay as curled as this over time, even though it was so cute. I might try to do it again, maybe on a higher heat, since this hair straightener doesn't really go that high. So I might try something in the future. With her hair all styled and her headband styled in place, here she is next to Bloom. I absolutely love how they turned out, and I can't wait to work on the next Winx doll to show you all.